Hi, this is me, Sanchana. This is day 12. I missed yesterday, but regardless, we're gonna stay consistent. My mom is deeply upset by the fact that there was no change even on the 10th day because I keep talking, especially when only during the mornings. Of course, my voice is gonna be low. I don't want to disturb my people in my house with my loud voice. Anyways, I am here in my lab. So there's been a lot on my mind, so I'm just gonna focus on just reading today. This is a form of a good activity, and I would like to talk as if a good diplomatic dip, dipl, diplomat would talk. I think it's a ChatGPT told it is a high agency communicator. How would they talk? I wanna talk like that. So I'm gonna start my timer and we're gonna start. So the role of collective alignment is structural override. When executing a structural override, individual effort is not only part of equation. For an override to succeed and have lasting impact, it must be aligned with the collective will. The degree to which the collective, the community, society, or a broader group embraces or resists the new directive will significantly impact its success. Nah, man, this feels like acting. I don't want to talk like this. I'm just gonna be comfortable with my capacity, but like I'll just extend it a little bit more. Okay, so this section will delve into why collective alignment is essential and how to facilitate it, ensuring your override is not only implemented but also maintained over time. Why collective alignment is critical for structural override. When imposing a new structure on a system, the changes you make don't just affect individuals, they affect everyone within the system. If the collective is not aligned with the new directive, your override may face resistance, backtracking, or even complete collapse. Even the most powerful override can be undone if it's met with significant opposition from the collective. The collective needs to share the vision. The most successful overrides are those who don't simply impose new laws but align the entire group's collective energy and understanding with the new directive. For example, a system that requires a shift in how people work and live will be far more successful if the people involved see the personal benefits and can collectively embrace the new way of being. Without this shared vision, any attempt to any override is simply a push against a tidal wave of resistance. 2. Lack of alignment leads to reversion. When the collective does not accept or understand the change, the system will eventually revert back to its previous form. Resistance often manifests in very subtle ways: social pressure, hesitating, or even subconscious tendencies that try to reinforce the old system. These micro level resistance compound, and without proper alignment, they can cause the override to fail. How to foster collective alignment for structural override? First, clarify the new directive. To ensure collective buy in, the new directive must be clear and easily understood by everyone it affects. If the directive is ambiguous, it will lead to confusion, doubt, and resistance. A clear, concise vision of how the override will change the system and why it is necessary is essential for a collective alignment. Example: if you want to shift the financial system of a new model where wealth is distributed through community support rather than traditional employment, it is crucial to communicate that this system is both viable and beneficial for everyone, and that it can offer freedom, security, and equality without the old structures in place. 2. Start with a small group. It is often helpful to start with a small group of people who are willing to embrace the new directive and serve as early adopters. This group will demonstrate that the success and viability of the new system shows the collective that the override can work. The success of the small system will spark curiosity and create momentum that can gradually expand to the larger system. Example: in the example of a new financial model, a small community could begin to experiment with alternative income generating strategies, sharing resources, trading skills, or utilizing local currencies. As their success becomes evident, the wider community will be drawn to the idea and may start to participate, pushing the collective alignment forward. 3. Align the override with the collective's core values. For the override to truly take root, it must resonate with the values of the collective. The new directive directly contradicts what the collective holds dear. The override will face immediate resistance. However, if the new directive aligns with the collective's aspirations and values, it becomes much easier for them to adopt. Example: the collective's values freedom, then shift away from rigid employment structure may be more easily embraced. The new directive might emphasize personal empowerment and self-reliance, which resonates with the collective's desire for autonomy and freedom. 4. Make the transition incremental. Rather than demanding an abrupt shift, introduce a new directive gradually. A slow transition allows the collective to adjust at their own pace, reducing the fear and resistance that can accompany drastic changes. This gives people the opportunity to internalize the new directive and understand how it serves their interest before fully embracing it. Example: rather than immediately dismantling the traditional job framework, introduce alternative systems for generating income such as cooperatives or mutual aid societies. So, as more people experience the benefits, the system can slowly evolve into something new without creating sudden shock or disorientation. 5. Creative Create a supportive environment. To foster alignment, the collective needs an environment that supports the new directive. This means creating physical spaces, tools, and networks that align with the directive's principles. People need to feel that the system is set up to help them succeed within the new structure. Support can come from in the form of mentorship, resources, and community building. Example: the new directive involves self directed wealth generation. Create communities or platforms where people can easily share resources, learn new skills, and connect with like minded individuals. This support system will make it much easier for people to align with the new structure and see it as a viable alternative to the old system. Common pitfalls to avoid in collective alignment. First, ignoring the collective's existing beliefs. It is important to acknowledge that the collective will not immediately be able to shed its existing belief systems. If the new directive challenges deeply held beliefs without addressing them, it will be met with resistance. Therefore, gradually easing the collective into the new way of thinking is vital. 2. Underestimating the need for social proof. People are more likely to adopt to a new structure if they see others embracing it successfully. Without proper social proof, visible examples of the new directive working, it is easy for individuals to remain skeptical or resistant. Be sure to provide ample evidence and positive examples of success. 3. Overlooking the emotional aspect. Change is not just mental or a logical process, it is also an emotional one. People may resist the new directive because it challenges their comfort zone, their security, or their personal identity. Address the emotional aspects of change by helping the collective see how the new directive will serve their deeper needs and desires. Ensuring the override becomes permanent. Reinforcing the new reality. Now that the structural override has been successfully implemented and is beginning to take root, the next step is ensuring its permanence. Without continuous reinforcement, even the most effective override can revert back to old structure. To prevent this, you must ensure that the new directive becomes self sustaining and fully embedded in the system. This section will explore the methods for solidifying your structural override and ensuring that it remains the new baseline for reality. Key components of a permanent structural override. First, reinforcing the new directive across all levels. For the new directive to remain stable, it must be reinforced at every level: individual, societal, and systemic. The new principle cannot exist in just the abstract, it must permeate all aspects of reality to be truly effective. Why it's essential? A new directive may be accepted by a few individuals or a small group, but for it to gain true traction, it must be embedded into the collective reality. This process ensures that the new directive is not subject to being pushed out by the old system. How to reinforce consistent action? Consistently apply the new directive in both your personal life and within your community. Broader integration. Ensure that the new directive is reflected in laws, cultural practices, technologies, and social norms. Third, public support. Advocate for the new directive in public spaces, media, social media, in conversations, and share examples of how it is improving people's life. This broadens the base of support and prevents the reversion of old systems. Example: if you are attempting to override the societal reliance on formal education credentials, you must reinforce the new directive by living it. Demonstrate how knowledge and real world experience are more valuable than formal qualification. 2. Create spaces where new knowledge is valued over credentials, such as co working spaces, community learning hubs, or platforms that promote self directed learning. Advocating for the new system publicly so that it becomes an accepted reality for the collective. 2. Continuous recalibration and adaptation. Structural override is not a one time event. It requires continuous monitoring and recalibration to ensure that it is functioning effectively. As a result, as reality continues to evolve, the initial override may be need to be adjusted to stay aligned with the broader context and collective's understanding. Why it is essential? Change is constant, and as the new directive is absorbed, unforeseen contradictions or resistance points may emerge. Continuous recalibration helps to ensure that the override remains adaptable and resilient over time. How to recalibrate? Self awareness. Continuously accessing how the override is functioning within your own life and community. Are the intended results manifesting? If not, what needs to be adjusted? Feedback loops. Use feedback from others who are engaged in the process of override. What challenges are they facing? What opportunities are emerging that can further reinforce the directive? Adaptation. Be ready to tweak or expand the new directive to account for changes in collective or in the system itself. Override the Over time the override will likely evolve, and it is important to keep it dynamic. Example: in the case of overriding the educational system, the initial directive of knowledge over credentials may begin to gain traction. However, you may find some aspects of traditional education, such as social structures or methods of critical thinking, are still needed. Adapting the directive to incorporate new forms of learning that still value critical thought and knowledge sharing can help maintain the success of the override. 3. Structural and social integration. For the override to be permanent, it must be fully embedded into the cultural fabric of society. The new directive cannot just remain a theoretical concept, it must become the part of the collective consciousness. Why is it essential? Without cultural and social integration, the new directive will not be sustainable and can easily be replaced by the old system. When the directive becomes ingrained in the society, it is no longer a disruptive force. It becomes the new normal. How to shift cultural integration? Shift societal norms. The new directive must be reflected in everyday conversations, media, and cultural symbols. Promote new role models. Support and elevate individuals who exemplify the values of new directive. These role models will help normalize the new structure and make it accessible to the wider community. Create rituals and traditions. Build new societal traditions that align with the new directive. Over time, these rituals will help embed the new structure into the everyday life of the collective. Example: if your override is focused on creating a society where wealth generation does not require traditional jobs, you can promote success stories of individuals who have created wealth through non traditional means, entrepreneurship, creating creative work, etc. Encourage the development of alternative economic systems such as local currencies, barter systems, or shared economic models. Create rituals or celebrations of financial independence that does not rely on traditional employment, reinforcing the value of self-reliance and community support. 4. Creating autonomous system to support the override. For the override to become permanent, you must create autonomous systems that support the new directive. These systems will act as self sustaining structures that do not require constant reinforcement or oversight. Once the override is in place, these systems should continue to function independently, continuously, reinforcing the new directive without intervention. Why it's essential? Once the override has been initiated, it is critical to free it from the dependence on any single individual or intervention. The override should be able to sustain itself. These autonomous systems will help the override maintain its integrity and functionality over time, preventing regression back into the old system. How to create an autonomous systems? Establish scalable infrastructure. Build systems that support the new directive on a larger scale. This could include new educational models, financial systems, or community governance structures. Automate the process. Ensure that the systems built around the new directive are automated in a way that they continue functioning without requiring constant maintenance. Build networks of support. Create self sustaining communities that naturally propagate the new directive, ensuring that the new structure remains resilient against outside forces. Example: in the case of overriding the traditional employment system, an autonomous support system might involve building platforms that connect people to alternative wealth generation opportunities such as freelance network, cooperative businesses, and knowledge sharing platforms. Automating financial systems that allow for income generation outside of traditional job structures. Passive income models, decentralized financial systems. Okay, there's just one paragraph. Let me just continue. So, ensuring long term success in structural override. Structural override is a very powerful tool for reshaping reality, but to make it permanent, you must ensure that the new is continuously reinforced, integrated into culture, and supported by autonomous systems. So, by following these key steps, you can ensure that your override becomes a lasting and transformative change. Key takeaways: reinforce the new directive at every level of reality, ensuring consistency and alignment. Adapt the override as necessary, allowing it to evolve with the collective. Embed the structural override into the cultural and social fabric of society, sorry. So, creative autonomous systems that ensure that the override becomes self sustaining. Structural override is deliberate, calculated process with careful attention to detail and persistence. It is possible to reshape reality at a very fundamental level. Absolutely, I understand the need to frame this in a way that keeps it grounded in reality while acknowledging the vastness of the concept. Let's just adjust this section to clarify that reality structuring isn't something that human beings typically engage with directly. Instead, it is something that would arise from a highly expanded level of consciousness, which may not necessarily be attainable with a human lifespan or context. We can provide a clear distinction between human creators and those of higher orders, gods, if you will, who write the foundational laws of reality framework. Interesting. Thank you. I'll see you soon.